Math 122, week number 9, homework. Let's check out what we got for measures of variation. First problem on the homework is something like this, finding standard deviation and range. Wait a minute, standard deviation, if you looked at the discussion board of the problems of the week with your data, I showed you how to do that in Excel, so wow, that's really easy. Well, but look at this. You got to get full credit, you need to fill in this grid. So let's make sure you can understand step by step how to get this grid, and let's do it with some new numbers. You'll solve it with those, I think that was height of babies. You'll do it with the height of male college students. Great, so we got some numbers. Those numbers, those measurements, always go in for X. Boom, right there. The measurements that I have go in for X. Now, this one right here, it doesn't really show up on the screen. That's an X with a bar. That stands for average. We'll get that next, the mean or the average. And in order to calculate that, I think you know how this goes. Add them all up, divide by 7 because there's 7 data points. All right, we get this number. Now, this is going to be the same in every single case because the average does not change. For this group, it does not change. The measurements change person by person, but the average does not. Next step over right here, X minus, once again, it doesn't really show up, X minus the mean. So we're just going sideways and we're subtracting. That's really easy. You get your calculator out. Take it. Okay, I'll use the word tedious because you got to do it 7 times, but I think you can follow that through. And then same thing on the last step. Look at it, it says take that same subtraction, but then do a square. And I think you know, most calculators, most iPhones, Android phones, whatever, will have a little square button. If not, you just take this number and multiply it by itself. Okay, once again, tedious. You got to do it 7 times, but you'll get some answers. In my case, we got to check it here. Also, quick note, I think everybody has this somewhere in their brain. If you do a negative times a negative, you get a positive. So notice all those squares are positive. If you got a negative answer in here, something went wrong. You're going to double check that. Okay, so we got this little table. We filled out the grid. Now we got to get this standard deviation. Well, look at, we got this big formula. Hopefully you come across that in the lecture notes for this course. A lot of stuff in that formula. Let's break it down. In the middle here is exactly what we just did. The X minus the mean to the squared. We just did that right here. 7 times we did it. Okay, what's up? Well, this little symbol. That is sigma. In math language, sigma means sum. So you add them all up right there, 31.429. Okay, so far so good. All right, on the bottom of that fraction, n minus 1, n, across the board, when you're talking mathematics, n means how many measurements do I have? How many things am I studying? In this case, I'm studying 7 people. So n minus 1 is going to be 6. And you look what just happened. The top, okay, we did the top over here. And then the bottom, once again, is the 7 minus 6. Okay, that's calculated. We do a division problem first and then do the square root right there, 2.289. A lot of steps going on. There's a lot of places where you might make one little mistake and so things might not work out. But if you double check it, all the steps are, individually, all the steps are fairly simple. Run that back if you need to double check it, but that's how we're going to calculate standard deviation by hand. And you can always go back to Excel to check. All right, next step. Here we have another big data set, but now I'm telling you, go ahead and use Excel. Don't try and kill yourself with that big old chart I was just doing. Let's go to Excel and calculate it. So first thing I do is see all those percents. Excel doesn't like the percents if I'm doing calculations. Let's just use the actual numbers, 70%, 86%, so on and so forth. Let's go. In order to find the average standard deviation, as I said, we can get to Excel to solve this. So here we are. That's the data set you were just doing. Average value. If you saw the video on the problems of the week, you know how to do this. Equals makes computer think like makes the computer start to think, makes Excel start to think about formulas. Now I'm ready to type average. I see average. I double click it. That parenthesis says give me numbers. You want numbers? I'll give you those numbers. Close the parenthesis. The average score is 81.475. Okay. Down here, standard deviation equals. Starts to think like the computer starts to think like formulas based. Okay. ST, we got to abbreviate it with a D. STDEV. I have STDEV down here. If you use P or S, you're going to be okay. STDEV, I double click it. I got a parenthesis. You want numbers? Here's your numbers. Close the parenthesis. I have a standard deviation. 81.475, average. 6.56, standard deviation. Next, take those numbers, and let's get to the next step, which is finding this usual unusual. Once again, if you checked out the videos for your problems of the week, the data sets that you picked, you know the step. But hey, it doesn't hurt to re-walk through it. So you have an average. You have a standard deviation. We have these formulas, the maximum and minimum usual values. Let's visualize that. Let's look at it at a number line. The average goes in the middle, and if I'm talking about minimums, I'm going down twice. How much? By the standard deviation. So that's 56 rather. That's where it comes into play. You go down by that much. Do a calculation once, do a calculation twice, and that tells me my cutoff, my minimum usual value is 68.349. Everything below it, that's definitely unusual. If I'm looking at 70% of the students, I can plot that. It doesn't have to be precise, but that 70 is going to go right about here. That's not unusual. Notice I didn't say it's usual. I said it's not unusual. There we go. Not unusual. You could play the same game with a maximum. Twice, you have to go up twice. How much do I go up by? What? That's standard deviation. Do the calculation once, do the calculation twice. I have a cutoff. I know everything else is unusual. And now I can say 100% of the people, I plot that. Whoa, 100 goes right past that cutoff. That 100 looks kind of unusual to me. Whoa, right there, there you go. That's how you nice and neatly tie it together. We saw that process on the problems of the week. Now we're seeing it on the homework. I think you can tie it all together. I think you can put it all together. Please let me know if you have any questions, because I know there's a lot of moving pieces in here. But that homework, Sunday, and then discussion board or problems of the week, get your own data set. I'm looking for that Sunday as well.